Crunch by Leslie Connor, Chapter 1. I saw it like this. A single worker at some faraway oil refinery with his head tilted down, peering into a pipe, waiting for one more drop that never came. Doesn't mean it was really like that. It probably wasn't. But that's what I saw in my mind's eye the night our parents called to say that their trip had been extended indefinitely. It was a 5-sibling foot race for the phone, and I won. Dad, is that you? I waited and listened. Sure is, Dewey. Can you hear me all right? Pretty well, I said, but the signal wasn't great, and my pulse was thumping in my ears. My older sister Lil pushed close to me. We shared the receiver. Everyone doing okay? Dad asked. We're all right, I said. And how about the situation? He asked. What's the view from the home front? Red flags are up at every fuel pump for miles, I said. I lost my breath on the words. No gas, no diesel. They say it's the same everywhere. Is that true, Dad? There's no fuel? His answer came slowly. It appears to be so, he said. Pumps are dry, clear across the country. Lil leaned away from the phone and whispered, Shoot. We both knew what was coming next. I'm just so sorry, Dad said. Mom and I are still caught up here practically in Canada. I've got a stack of ration cards, but at the moment, they're not worth a roll of toilet tissue. I tried to give him a laugh, but nothing came out. Dad will joke even in tough situations, but he was sincere about that apology. They had thought twice about having Mom go, but this was the anniversary trip. Number 20. None of us had wanted them to miss it. Dad's main job is making deliveries all up and down the coast of New England. He drives an 18-foot box truck with a roll-up rear door. He can maneuver it in and out of all the nooks and crannies in the seashore towns. He's an independent, makes up his own route and schedule. Each July, Mom rides with him for a few days to celebrate their wedding anniversary. It's not a fancy trip. I sometimes think of it as the week that Mom goes to work with Dad. But Mom loves the scenery, and she says that it's only right that she support Dad in his lifelong search for the best basket of fish and chips in New England. It used to be they'd get someone to stay with us kids, but this year Lil was 18, I was 14, and Vince was 13. Angus and Ava, our twins, were only 5. But to Mom, that meant they were no longer babies. With all of us Marriss kids being the embodiment of responsibility, Liz came up with that one, it was decided that we could manage on our own. And we could. And we were. So far. What's the news from the bike barn, Dewey? Dad asked. It's busy, I said. Okay, not exactly news. The Marriss bike barn had been humming all summer. We do repairs. Hard times at the gas pumps had meant good times for the bike biz. People were relying on pedal power, big time. If there was news, it was that we were busier now than Dad had ever seen it, but I couldn't quite bring myself to tell him that. Vince and I have it covered, I said. My brother faked a cheery smile, then let his face collapse into a gory frown. I couldn't blame him. I was the one who'd talked Dad into letting me run the shop while he and Mom were away, and I was the one who'd roped Vince into it with me. Just be careful you don't get overwhelmed, Dad said. I didn't say anything. There was a pause on the line. Lil pressed closer to me, practically climbing up my ankles. I shuffled sideways. Dad went on. Now Lil's class starts tomorrow. She should still go. That's paramount. No reason you guys can't make that work, especially with Angus and Eva in C camp all morning. Lil turned away again. This time she fired a euphoric yes toward the ceiling. I'm afraid we're not going to get an overnight solution to this fuel thing, Dad said. But mark my words, life will move on. You'll see it. And if something doesn't break within a few days, I suppose we'll try to get Mom down to a train. Somehow. Not sure how we'll get her out of the hinterlands. Now he was thinking out loud. I'll have to stay with a truck. I guess we're in a game of wait and see. Lil took the phone from me with a twist of her wrist. Dad, don't sweat this, she said. I'll only be in class until 1 o'clock. Then I'm home. Mom should stay with you. Besides, how long can it go on? And Dad, how long have I been doing this? She meant how long had she been taking care of younger kids? The answer? A long time. She was already 13 by the time Angus and Eva were born. I figure those two just figure they have two moms. Our parents gave Lil some instructions and fired off the reminder that they expected us all to take care of one another. I heard that loud and clear from my place beside Lil's shoulder. After they hung up, the 5 of us stood in the kitchen for several seconds without saying anything. Lil and Vince and I knew we'd have to somehow play it happy for Angus and Eva. This wasn't fun news for anybody. But try telling a pair of 5-year-olds that you don't know when their mommy and daddy are coming home. I just really wanted them to come home now, Angus said. He blinked back tears. Well, how many more days? Ava wanted to know. She was trying hard to suck it up, too. Lil squatted down, arms wide. Okay, come here, she said. She gathered them in. I know you miss them, but you have Vince and Dew and me. We're going to keep on taking good care of you. And when there is enough fuel again, Mom and Dad will come straight home to us. This is just some bad luck. Nobody could have known. But part of me was thinking that we should have known, or somebody should have. Fuel reserves had been low all winter, and they'd stayed that way through the spring. The news had been full of stories, everything from people giving up their gas guzzlers and lawnmowers to higher prices and ration cards. There had been long lists of all the goods and services that were slowed because of the fuel shortage. But now, in this second week in a hot July, suddenly shortage wasn't the right word anymore. Shortage would mean there wasn't enough. Instead, there wasn't any. Vince hit the nail on the head. He usually does. This, he said, is a crunch.